Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Bhalava Giri Bharadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Bhalava Giri Bharadhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shatashishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki His co-founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Shimam Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishiguru and Shigoranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, General History. Chapter 2, Maharaj Nimi meets the 9 Yogendras. Text number 22. Taete Bhagavat Rupam Vishwanshat Ashat Atmakam Atmano Vyatirekena Pashyanto Vyacharam Mahim Taete Bhagavat Rupam Vishwanshat Ashat Atmakam Atmano Vyatirekena Pashyanto Vyacharam Mahim Taete Bhagavat Rupam Vishwansat Asat Atmakam Atmano Vyatirekena Pashyanto Vyacharam Mahim. Please chant. Taetet Bhagavan Rupam Vishwansat Atsat Atmakam Atmano vyatirekena vyasyanto vyacharam mahim. Ta ete bhagavat rupam vishwan sat asat atmakam atmano vyatirekena ta ete bhagavat rupam vishwan sat asat atmakam atmano vyatirekena Pashyanto Vyacharam Mahim. Ladies. Taete Bhagavat Rupam Vishwan Sat Asat Atmakam Atmano Vyatirekena Pashyanto Vyacharam Mahim. Taete Bhagavat Rupam Vishwan Sat Asat Atmakam Atmano Vyatirekena Pashyanto Vyacharam Mahim. Taete. These 9 Yogendras, Bhagavat of the Supreme Lord, Rupam, a form, Vishwam, the entire universe, Sat Asat Atmakam, consisting of both gross and subtle objects, Atmanaha, from the self, Avyatirekena, as non-different, Pashyantaha, seeing, Vyacharam, they wonder, Mahim, the earth. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. These sages wonder the earth, seeing the entire universe with all its gross and subtle objects as a manifestation of the Supreme Lord and as non-different from the self. Purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, it is clearly demonstrated in this and the following verse that the 9 saintly sons of Rishabdev, known as the Navayogendras, were situated in the highest stage of spiritual perfection called Parama Hamsya Charitam, or, quote, having fully developed the character of Paramahamsas, end of quote. In other words, they were pure devotees of the Lord. According to Sridhar Swami and Jiva Goswami, the words Atmano Vyatirekena indicate that the 9 sages saw the universe as being non-different from themselves, as well as non-different from the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has additionally commented, Atmana Paramatmanaha Shakashat Avyatirekena Vishwasyat Tachakti Maya Tvat Iti Bhava. Quote, Atmanaha indicates the super soul. This universe is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, since the entire universe is composed of his energy. End of quote. Although it is stated here that the cosmic manifestation is non-different from both the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should not think that either the living entity or the Supreme Lord is material. A Vedic aphorism states, Asangohya Yampurushaha, quote, the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead have nothing to do with the material world, end of quote. Furthermore, Bhagavad Gita says that the entire universe consisting of 8 gross and subtle elements constitute the Bhina Prakriti or Apara Prakriti, the separated inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna clearly states in Bhagavad Gita that he has eternally established his own abode in the kingdom of God, where life is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and that the living entity, being part and parcel of God, is also eternal. Mamai vansa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Bhagavad Gita 15.7. Furthermore, once having gone to that eternal abode of the Lord, the living entity never returns to this temporary manifestation. Jam prapya na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. One may ask why the living entity and the Supreme Lord are stated to be non-different from the material universe. The question is very nicely answered by Srila Narada Muni in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 5, text number 20. Idam hi vishwam bhagavan ibetaro jato jagat sthana nirodha sambhavaha. Quote, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead, is himself this cosmos, and still he is aloof from it. From him only has this cosmic manifestation emanated. In him it rests, and unto him it enters after annihilation. End of quote. Commenting on Narada's statement, Srila Prabhupada has very nicely explained this delicate philosophical point. Quote, for a pure devotee, the conception of Mukunda, Lord Shri Krishna, is both personal and impersonal. The impersonal cosmic situation is also Mukunda because it is the emanation of the energy of Mukunda. For example, a tree is a complete unit, whereas the leaf and branches of the tree are emanated parts and parcels of the tree. The leaf and branches of the tree are also the tree, but the tree itself is neither the leaf nor the branches. The Vedic version that the whole cosmic creation is nothing but Brahman means that since everything is emanating from the Supreme Brahman, nothing is apart from him. Similarly, the part and parcels, hands and legs, are called the body. But the body as the whole unit is neither the hands nor the legs. The Lord is the transcendental form of eternity, cognition, and beauty. And thus the creation of the energy of the Lord appears to be partially eternal, full of knowledge, and beautiful also. Sorry. Quote, according to the Vedic version, The Lord is naturally fully powerful, and thus his supreme energies are always perfect and identical with him. Both the spiritual and the material skies and the paraphernalia are emanation of the internal and external energies of the Lord. External energy is comparatively inferior, whereas the internal potency is superior. The superior energy is living force, and therefore she is the energies, sorry, and therefore she is completely identical with the Lord. But the external energy, being inert, is partially identical. Both, but both the energies are neither equal to nor greater than the Lord, who is the generator of all energies. Such energies are always under his control, exactly as electrical energy, however powerful it may be, is always under the control of the engineer. Quote, the human beings and all other living beings are products of his internal energies. Thus, the living being is also identical with the Lord, but he is never equal or superior to the personality of Godhead. End of quote. Srila Prabhupada has clearly explained here that both the cosmic manifestation and the living entities are emanations from the Supreme Lord, as confirmed both in Vedanta Sutra and in the opening statement of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Jammadhyashe Yataha. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text number 1. Quote, the absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. End of quote. Similar, the Sri Ishopanishad states, Om Purnam Adapurnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnan Eva Vashishyate. Ishopanishad invocation. The Supreme Lord, the absolute truth, is Purna, or complete in himself. And since this cosmic world is a manifestation of his potency, it also appears to be Purna. In other words, because this material world is an emanation from the Supreme Lord, it is none different from him, exactly as the sun rays are none different from the sun glow, which is the source of their emanation. Similarly, the living beings who are expansions of the superior or conscious energy of the Supreme Lord are also non-different from Krishna, although this non-different is qualitatively and not quantitative. The gold found in golden ornaments such as a ring and bracelets is qualitatively identical with the gold in a mine, but the gold in the mine is quantitatively far superior than the tiny quantity of gold in a bracelet or ring. Similarly, although we are qualitatively one with God, being a spiritual emanation of his unlimited potency, we are quantitatively infinitesimal and eternally subordinate to his supreme power. Therefore, the Lord is called Vibhu, or infinitely potent, and we are Anu, or infinitesimal, or dependent. How you pronounce that? Infinitesimal, or dependent. This is further confirmed in the Vedic literature by the statement Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunanjo Vidadati Kamam, Kata Upanishad 2.2.13. There are innumerable eternal living entities who are eternally and totally dependent upon the supreme singular living entity, the Supreme Lord. That dependence is not an illusion created by material existence, as stated by the impersonalist philosophers, but is an eternal relationship in which the Lord is eternally superior and we are eternally inferior. The Lord is eternally independent and we are eternally dependent. The Lord is eternally absolute in himself and we are eternally relative to his supreme personality. Although the Lord is infinitely greater than any other living being, or that all of them combined, every living being is qualitatively non-different from the Lord, because all living beings are part and parcels emanating from Him. Mama Ivansa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanam. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, text number 7. Therefore, in one sense, the living entity is also not different from the material cosmic manifestation, which is an inferior sister energy of the Lord. Both the living entity and the material nature are prakriti, or feminine, dependent expansions of the Supreme Purusha. The difference is that the living entity is the superior energy of the Lord, because the living entity is conscious and eternal like the Lord, whereas the material energy is the inferior energy of the Lord, lacking consciousness and eternal form. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has emphasized in this regard that the absolute substance is one and is called Paramatma, or the Super Soul. When one has achieved but a partial vision of the Paramatma, one's understanding of life is called Atma Darshana, or self-realization. And when even this partial understanding is lacking, one's existential condition is called Anatma Darshana, or ignorance of the self. In the state of partial realization of the Super Soul, without recognition of the Paramatma's distinction from the individual soul, the living entity tends to become puffed up by his spiritual achievement, be carried away by mental concoction, and consider himself equal in all respects with God. On the other hand, the living entity situated in anatmadarshana, or material ignorance, feels that he is completely different from the Supreme Lord. And since everyone in this material world is interested in himself, the living entity forgets about God, thinking that God is completely different from him and that there is therefore no substantial relationship between him and God. In this way, the impersonal transcendentalists emphasize only the oneness between God and the living entity, whereas the ordinary materialists overemphasize the difference between God and the living entity. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has clearly revealed that the ultimate truth is simultaneously one and difference. Achintya Veda Abheda Tattva. Actually, we are eternally different from God because the living entity and God are eternally separate individual entities. There exists the possibility of an eternal relationship. And because every living entity is qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord, that relationship constitutes the essence of the ultimate reality for every living being. as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 20, verse 108. Jivera Shwarupahoy Krishnera Nityadas. Quote, the ultimate essential identity of every living entity is his relationship with the Supreme Lord as a servitor of the Lord. If one can understand that he is an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can correctly understand that both the living entity and the material universe are identical with Krishna, being emanations from him, and that they are therefore non-different from each other. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has stated, quote, the material world is a manifestation of simultaneous difference and non-difference, and it is a form of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the temporary, perishable, and ever-changing material world is different from Vaikuntha, the eternal world. End of quote. It should be noted that in this verse, the word Sat Asat Atmakam, or quote, made up of gross and subtle objects, end of quote, does not refer to material and spiritual objects. This universe is stated to be composed of Sat and Asat, gross and subtle material objects. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, quote, the very subtle state within the manifest world is known as the unmanifest, and the realm beyond the manifest is called transcendental. Within the covering surrounding the manifest, in the region of the time factor, is the phase of material existence experienced by the controlling deities. In this phase exist the two functions, cause, asat, and effect, sat. In the universe, which is a third tattva or reality, apart from containing both sat and asat, and which is a form of the Supreme Lord, it is impossible to produce any contradiction that the non-dual absolute truth. Any contradiction to the non-dual absolute truth. I'm going to read that again because, this is very deep philosophy, and it's at the heart of the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. So it's very important to constantly hear this from these pure devotees of the Lord. So I'm going to read that again. So this is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. The very subtle state within the manifest world is known as the unmanifest. And the realm beyond the manifest world is called transcendental. Within the coverings surrounding the manifest, in the region of the time factor, it is the phase of material existence experienced by the controlling deities. In this phase exist the two functions, cause, asat, and effect, sat. In the universe, which is a third tattva or reality, apart from containing both sat and asat, and which is a form of the Supreme Lord, it is impossible to produce any contradiction to the non-dual absolute truth. End of quote. In other words, although ignorant materialistic scientists may zealously carry out research to find a material principle that can negate or render unnecessarily the existence of God? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati clearly states that since the universe is an emanation from the Lord and therefore spiritually identical with Him, there cannot possibly exist anywhere within the universe a material law, principle, or phenomenon that in any way contradicts the supremacy of the personality of Godhead. In fact, the entire universe, along with the spiritual sky, exists as eternal testimony to the unlimited glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. With this understanding, the 9 Yogendras were traveling about the earth in transcendental bliss. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Ramapada Swami Iti Namine. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, the vision of the Paramahansa devotees is something that is described in this chapter and being very much highlighted in the verses that we're reading, specifically today's verse and also the verses that are coming for the next classes. The vision of the Paramahansa devotees is described as Samyak Darshana. It's complete. Samyak means complete, full. So the darshan of the truth is complete. And what does that mean? That there is a perfect understanding of the personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. Srila Sutta Goswami explained that the absolute truth can be understood in 3 phases: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The whole non-dual tattva, or the absolute tattva, can be understood in these 3 phases. Brahman means the spiritual potency of the Lord, the energy of the Lord, of the absolute truth. Paramatma is localized, and Bhagavan is the personality of God. And it's explained that both the Brahman and the Paramatma are partial understanding of the absolute truth. Bhagavan is Samyak Darshana, is the absolute understanding, the complete understanding of the absolute truth. Within Bhagavan, the whole absolute truth is perfectly present. So, the absolute truth is defined in the Vedas, especially in Vedanta Sutra, as that from which everything emanates. Jammadya Shayataha. The beginning of Vedanta Sutra, which is basically the whole knowledge of the Vedas, quoted or making quotes to become easily accessible and studied by transcendentalists, start with, now that you have this human form, you must inquire about transcendence, about the absolute truth. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. And what is this absolute truth? Jamadhyasya Yataha. That from which everything emanates. The source of everything. So, when we understand the absolute truth in these three phases, both Brahman and Paramatma are emanations of the personality of Godhead. And the Srimad Bhagavatam concludes that that source of everything is Krishna. The verse that defines the whole teachings of the Bhagavatam is recited by Srila Sutta Goswami in the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Ete chansa kalapunsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He says that in answer to the questions that the sages of Naimisharanya presented. One of the questions was, you please tell us about the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this world and his different incarnations. So in the 3rd chapter, he addressed that question and he described all the different, many incarnations of the Lord. He describes only 24 or something, 20 something of them. But he said that this is just a handful of them, but the fact is that the appearance of the Lord cannot be counted. It's like you sitting down by the shore of the ocean and try to count the waves. They never stop. They're unlimited. So the appearance of the Lord are like that. But here are some of the principles or well known. So he described that. And within that, he says, all of these incarnations that I have just described are either expansions of the expansion of the supreme original personality of Godhead, Krishna. So Krishna is described as Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality of God. From him, everything emanates. And this is the statement that Srila Vyasadeva, in the maturity of his realization, after being instructed by Srila Narada Muni, his spiritual master, to compile the essence of all knowledge, to compile a literature that specifically present the highest truth and the highest understanding of the absolute truth. This was after Srila Vyasadeva had compiled all the Vedic literatures. And to complete that work, Srila Narada Muni instructed him. You compile the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so Vyasadeva, after achieving full realization of the absolute truth, to be able to fully express that Samyak Darshana. It is explained that actually he had that darshan. He had that darshan of Krishna and Krishna's energy. So the full thing, then he presented the Bhagavatam. And to begin, he said, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. that I offer my obeisances to Lord Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. And then he who compiled the Vedanta Sutras, he basically opened the Bhagavatam as the perfect commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And he established that Krishna, he is Satyam Param, the absolute truth. And by being Satyam Param, he is the absolute truth because he is Jammadhyasya Yatambhaja. Jammadhyasya Itarasta Chatursva Vigashwara. He goes like that. He established Krishna is the source of everything from the very beginning. And then every other system of religion, every other system of transcendence, this is not something that is going to be discussed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Every other system that is there to elevate one's consciousness, that have some mix of motivations, material motivations, those are rejected or kicked out. Second verse of the Bhagavatam. What is it? I got a blank. But the second verse of the first canto, this process of religions are rejected. What is it, Vivo? Dharma projita kaitobhatra. Rejected. So, the vision of the Paramahamsa devotees, because also Srila Vyasadeva established that this is a literature for Paramahamsas, because the Paramahamsas will relish, they're rasikas. Third verse of the Bhagavatam, of that introduction of the Bhagavatam, that this is a literature to be relished by those Paramahamsa devotees that are fully absorbed in tasting the nectar that is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is the glorification, the narration of the activities, the lila, the form, the qualities of the personality of Godhead. And more specifically, it highlights the relationship between Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So we have all these different examples of the great devotees and the relationship that they have with Krishna. Throughout the Bhagavatam, one after another, examples of Paramahamsas that have a full understanding of Krishna's position. And so, at the heart of the process that we receive through the Bhagavatam is two main principles. And Srila Sutta Goswami explains this, that for conditioned souls, what we receive in the process of Bhagavad Dharma is that we must absorb ourselves in the process of Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. These things is essential for the conditioned souls to elevate oneself to perfection, to self-realization, to be able to fully understand our connection and establish ourselves in our connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, the path to become a Paramahansa is there. So the path to become a Paramahansa, which is Bhagavad Dharma, is have these two elements that are most important for conditioned souls. And Srila Sutta Goswami explains that to the sages of Naimisharanya in response to the first two questions, which is, please tell us the essence and tell us what is the process that will allow the people of Kali Yuga to become happy, to become realized, to actually become free from the miseries that one have to experience in this material world. And in response to that, the second chapter of the first canto of Bhagavatam, the divinity and divine service, is so relevant for us aspiring devotees, sadhakas, to study and understand very, very deeply. Because the whole breakdown, the whole process of gradually elevating oneself to the position of prema, from Shraddha to prema, is breakdown in this chapter in a very practical manner that it very virtually that addresses the reality of a conditioned soul. A conditioned soul is invested in the material world with attachments, with desires, with aspirations, and still conditioned by material nature to act in a particular way, to have a particular type of inclinations for working, for doing things in the world. And we still conditioned to see ourselves and experience the world through our material bodies and our material, and both the gross and the subtle bodies, material bodies. So we experience things that we're still conditioned. So for these conditioned souls, Srila Sutta Goswami gives very practical instructions. Same instructions that are very much given in a very simplified way by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Very practical and instructions that are directed at conditioned souls. So Srila Sutta Goswami gives these two principles that are most in order to gain entrance to the process of Bhagavad Dharma. He says, Shushusho Sadadharmasya Shadadanasya Shushusho Shadadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi. So to obtain Vasudeva Kataruchi, to gain a taste, to hear the messages, the philosophy, the absolute, the message of the absolute, to gain a taste for that, then Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra, one must serve these Paramahamsa devotees and one should hear from them. So these two things, hear from the Paramahamsas and serve them. Serve them. By doing that, Vasudeva Kataruchi. And then boom, the whole thing just is like a domino thing. Because when one gains this taste for hearing, then the hearts become purified. Sutta Goswami explains that in the following verses, that by hearing daily, constantly, he actually says, constant hearing, all the unwanted things from within the heart becomes eliminated, purified. So the process of hearing from the Paramahansas. So Paramahansas is what Srila Prabhupada has given us. The gift of Srila Prabhupada to the world is to give us, the people of Kali Yuga in this world, access to listening constantly from these Paramahansas, who give us the full understanding of the absolute truth. So, without the vision of these Paramahansas, there's no chance for the conditioned souls to understand the absolute truth. There's no chance. And there's a difference between Paramahansas and other transcendentalists. The difference is that Paramahansa has a full understanding of the absolute truth. Other transcendentalists have partial understanding. The partial understanding won't do the trick, won't free you from this material world. Now, in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that these impersonalists, they also on the path of self-realization, and they will get there, but after many, many difficulties. So it's a much more treacherous, difficult path that, as Krishna explains, to get to the position of Paramahansa, for those transcendentalists, and those transcendentalists are the Jnanis and the Yogis. So we have the Jnanis who concentrate on Brahman realization, the Yogis who pursue Paramatma realization, and the Bhaktas who worship the personality of God. So for Jnanis and Yogis, this process of transcendentalists, is very treacherous. It will take many, many lifetimes to come to the position of understanding the full absolute truth. They will get there. Krishna explains that Bahunam Jammana Ante, after thousands and thousands of birth, these Jnanis, these yogis, they actually will come to understand, when they will reach a Jnanavam, the end of all knowledge. The end of what is the end of all knowledge? Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. That Krishna is everything. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Those people, so the Paramahansas are rare. They're rare. And by the mercy of Prabhupada, we have lineage of Paramahansas that are giving us these explanations. And that's what we're receiving. Because without them, you tell me, you read a verse like we read today. You take it not in the context of the whole narrative of the Srimad Bhagavatam that have no entrance for anything but the vision of the Paramahansas. So you take this out of context and you can understand. You can very easily come to the conclusion that, impersonalism. We are one with Krishna and we're one with the universe. The universe, everything is one, like that. Because this is what is expressed here. So out of context, we won't have a chance. In fact, we see how highly intellectual, austere, powerful transcendentalists that have great achievements in renunciation and great achievement in being knowledgeable and scholarly, they have no understanding. They have this partial understanding. And the Bhagavatam explains that they think they're liberated. They think they're liberated. It is explained here in the purport we read that become puffed up and they think they're one with God, and therefore in that stage they're liberated. This is by the prayers of the Vedas in the second chapter of the 10th canto. Prabhupada quotes this verse very, very often. Aruhya Krichena. How's it go? Vimukta Maninas. Yeniera Vindaksha Vimukta Maninas. Yeniera Vindaksha Vimukta Maninas. Vimukta Maninas. In my mind, I think I'm liberated. But actually, these are people that don't accept Aravindaksha, the Lotus Eye Lord. They don't accept him. And in their mind, they think we're liberated. Yeniera Vindaksha Vimukta Maninas. Tvayi Ashta Baba Avishuddha Buddhaya. Their buddhi is Avishuddha, is impure. That's why. It's impure intelligence. The impure intelligence, the very impure thing that is kicked out from the Srimad Bhagavatam. The impurity is that I'm still afflicted by this false conception that I am. It's about me. So, because of impure intelligence, they think they're liberated. But Geneva, Aruhyo Krichena Padam Padam Tata, that even after with so much work and austerities, tapas, they achieve the position that in their mind the thing is supreme. Adho, what is it? Adho, I forgot the last, but Jusman Angrajaha, that because they neglect to worship the lotus feet of the Lord, then Patanti Adho, they fall down. They fall down. They fall down. So even Jnanis who may achieve liberation, this impersonal liberation, because they neglected the lotus feet of the Lord, they will fall down. Even after achieving that liberation, they will fall down, which is extraordinary. Is so transcendentalists who achieve the position even of merging into Brahman, they will fall down from that position. Why? Because they didn't understand that Krishna, their eternal relationship with Krishna, that's the supreme position. To have this full vision that is explained and that's going to be explained by the Paramahansas Navayogendras, and how it's being explained by all the Paramahansa devotees of the Lord, and that we're receiving through the purpose and explanation of the Paramahansa devotees, starting with our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada and all the disciplic succession that is there. So we can understand how fortunate we are to have access to these Paramahamsas and have access to this perfect understanding. And through this perfect understanding, we can actually have a chance to become a Paramahansa devotee. And so it's important to appreciate and to study and to constantly absorb oneself in listening and serving the Paramahansa devotees. So it's the process of Krishna consciousness, the process of Bhagavatarma. Any comments or questions? Prabhu, welcome to Chicago. Thank you so much. You get a microphone. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
It's just an appreciation of freedom how even from India, from originally, so much concept of impersonalism is there and how personalism. So outwardly everything appears that they are worshipping a person of God, but in essence,
Right.
all being personalists.
Exactly.
We appreciate more and more, or I appreciate more and more, reading Srila Prabhupada books and having many other realizations, seeing what India is going through now and before, and what Prabhupada has done to the Western world, and also for India. How grateful I am to Srila Prabhupada for actually teaching us the true message without penetration.
Yeah.
So after hearing what you have said is vision of the Paramahansa. So transcendental, and we have to appreciate it, at least in our generation, this generation going forward of how they can actually take the message of Srila Prabhupada, of personalism, going forward.
Yeah, it's quite wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Same when I sort of read the verse and was preparing. That's what it came. Wow, how how grateful we are to what tremendous fortune we have to have access to this wealth of understanding and knowledge, and so liberally given to us. And that's a mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Also, we appreciate Lord Chaitanya's Mahavadanyaya. That and it goes even deeper. I mean, we're just talking here about the philosophy of Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, which is fundamental to understand the absolute truth. But then when you go into like the conversation between Lord Chaitanya and Srila Ramananda Roy, go further, go further. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper. What we're receiving is actually the capacity to enter into Krishna's intimate pastimes in Vrindavan. People like us have the opportunity to enter into those intimate pastimes, a position that is so rare that we hear that even the goddess of fortune was not allowed. I mean, how can you understand that? How in the world we should be able to understand that? but that's what we're receiving from Lord Chaitanya. And the fact is that the process to do it is a very simple process. It's this process of hearing and chanting and remembering and service. So, and that's all simple process is backed up by this incredible, complete philosophy. It's called the whole Ishavasya principle. I mean, you can really go, and create a whole workshop of this, thing. We can go and analyze, the first mantra of the Ishopanishad that tells about the Ishavasya principle, which is understanding that Krishna is the source of everything. So everything belongs to him. And here's a practical way that we can act in the world, and how can we, things like that. All is spanning from this vision of the Paramahansa of, everything is in Krishna and Krishna is in everything, like that. It's these energies and the relationship. Anyway, it's just incredible. It's incredible. Thank you. Mataji, please. Your family? Yes. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Welcome to Chicago.
Insights about the essence of our devotions. Thank you. So my question is, you were mentioning that Jnanis, the yogis, they think themselves to be liberated, but actually they are not. So it many times wonders me because we have seen people around us who might be in the mode of goodness, or they might be in a non-mana, and they come across to us and to many others as to be walking on the spiritual path. And we have to make distinctions devotees whom we want to associate and whom we not. So we do understand that they are not devotees, they are following some other path. But then in my mind, I do sometimes feel that how can they think that they are transcendental and powerful? As you mentioned, they think themselves to be liberated. So I many times wonder what goes on in their mind. Is Krishna bewildering them? Because the definition of liberation is very simple, where you are not attached to material things, and you are on a platform where you know that you are a soul, and spiritual life begins from there on. So it just, if they are attached still to material things, which Prabhupada many times repeats that they are, and that's why they keep them then do philanthropic work and all that, then how can they think in their mind that they are liberated? Not all of them are cheaters, many of them are innocent as well. Are they taught wrong definitions, or Krishna is bewildering them? It makes me wonder how can people think they are liberated when they are not. As devotees, the path is hard to be able to come on the Brahman platform. You know that even with the help of Krishna. Now, those who don't have the mercy of Guru Parampara, how can they think that they are liberated?
Yeah. Is this, we often think into that, and in one sense, from my perspective, um, in my level, I try to be very thoughtful and conscientious in one sense, because I'm a conditioned soul who is a practitioner of sadhana bhakti that is trying to become purified. So the position of being judgmental and saying, oh, this person is not good, this person is good, is not a very recommended. It doesn't help me. On the other hand, the cultivation of principles of character that is being ins- that we've been instructed to follow is Trinara Pis Nichinata Rora Pis. And we should cultivate humility. Humility, not necessarily that I'm the lowest, I'm the lowest, but humility is the understanding that I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of the personality of Godhead. So, that position. And the other ones is tolerance and respect. I should be very respectful to all people. And also I should curb my false ego that I need to be respected, I need to be recognized, etc., etc. So that's our position, starting with that. Now, from the position of people that are transcendentalists, there's different types of people that we find that are following religiosity. We have the karma candies, which are materialists, pious people, and some of them, very much committed to the process of, dharma or kaitava dharma in the karma kanda stuff. In India, that's you find a majority of people. That's a tradition. So that's sometimes also presented as spiritual, but it's not. Is a process of it's a process that will lead you to transcendental, but but still remains within the realm of material activities. So the karmi, then the transcendentalists are the jnanis, the yogis, and the bhaktas. Transcendentalists are people who are following a spiritual path. So now, the people who are following, this is explained in the yoga ladder, the people that are following a spiritual path, transcendentalists, they are in the process of becoming liberated. And Krishna says of the impersonalists, the Brahmavadis and the yogis, they're bona fide. They're okay. It's just between them and the bhaktas. That's what Arjuna asked in the 12th chapter. Which one is better? Those who are the impersonal in the personal path, or those who are, the personalists, the bhaktas? And Krishna says, they're all good, but the bhaktas are superior because it's a path that is direct. So, how we should see it? First of all, always respectful and understanding that my spiritual master and preceptors, they are bhaktas, and we're in the path of bhakti. And in the path of bhakti, we only focus on understanding the absolute truth from the perspective of Bhagavan. And within Bhagavan, we understand the other ones are just expansions. Brahman and Paramatma are expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, manifestation, localized, and the energy. We have that understanding. So we don't listen, we don't associate in a very intimate way with impersonalists. Why? Well, because my position as a student or as a devotee who still is not situated in the position, the full position of understanding, I'm vulnerable. My faith can be affected. And it's explained, that's what Lord Chaitanya says, that it's like drinking milk that is touched by the lips of a serpent. So it says, do not associate with the impersonalists. So we have those guidelines, but that doesn't mean that we disrespect, doesn't mean that we think that we're superior. You know, we are, our position is that I'm being sheltered by a Paramahansa. I'm beyond that shelter, and therefore I'm secure. You know, I'm like a little duckling. So the duckling is not, challenging other big creatures, like that. So we're very, very in that position. So that's my understanding. We can, the why they become bewildered, why in their mind they think that these are transcendentalists. So even those transcendentalists that you see that they're they're very spiritual, some of them, but at the end you can see that there is something that it starts to take away, and what Prabhupada says, well, not Prabhupada, the purport says that they become puffed up and they start to think, I'm one with God. That's where the thing goes to square one. I'm one with God. I'm God. That's where the whole thing, poof. So, and that's when the fall downs come. On the other hand, if they have the association of a Paramahansa, then they easily, because that's what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the Jnani, the four people that comes to him, the what is it? The um, Arta, Artarti, and the Jnani. The Jnani very easily takes to devotional service. They understand they're the best. They immediately take. And the example in the scriptures, Sukadev Goswami, the four Kumaras, they have this type of association, boom, immediately. They take to devotional service. So that's the point. We're going to stop here because it's time for the arati, but I thank you very much for your attention. And thank you. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.